A great example would be the CEO of Amazon, like that level. This might be a hot take, but I don't think that they should ever have a moment of peace.
Hello,
Hello, and
and
welcome
welcome
back
back
to
to
the
the
Two
Two
Cents
Cents
Podcast.
Podcast.
I'm Hannah Williams.
And I'm James Daniels.
And today we have an interesting episode planned for you, highlighting the fastest growing jobs of 2025, especially post pandemic. And with the rise of AI, a lot has changed and we need to go over it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this list has definitely varied from, 2020, 2022.
Oh my gosh, that's actually a really good question. Hold please. I'm going to Google the fastest growing job of 2020 and see how that compares to 2025.
And while she does that, I'm going to go ahead and do my Red Bull ASMR. So let's go ahead and crack it open.
So I just Googled it, and funny enough, can you guess what the fastest growing job of 2020 was? I feel like I should Google what the fastest growing job of 2019 was, because it is related to the pandemic.
Oh, well, if you wouldn't have told me that was related to the pandemic, I would have assumed that it was something like software engineering.
Mm,
Um,
really?
yeah, only because I know that like tech has really had this huge bubble that's continued to grow even through the pandemic. I feel as though the pandemic only helped it grow a little bit more. But if I had to guess, pandemic related, I don't know, a
It's
nurse,
pretty obvious. Yeah, you're getting there. What did we have to do a lot?
vaccines.
You getting there? Health screeners.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, they had a
Well,
bunch of
I don't
people
know if
there.
that counts as fastest growing when it was like a necessity to
That's
have
what I
it.
said. It's like, okay, the answer was a little bit different than what I was looking for. But other fastest growing jobs of 2020 also included personal shoppers and RV service technicians, which makes sense considering the landscape of 2020.
Yeah, everybody's out of office, so a lot of people probably decided to take their RVs out, which meant that they needed maintenance for it. So yeah, that makes a
That's
lot of
exactly
sense.
what happened. Yeah. But I actually just Googled what 2019 looked like, and software developers, so you were just a year ahead, they were highlighted as a rapidly growing field, and other jobs that also were growing quickly were home health and personal care aides, data scientists, physician assistants, and cybersecurity professionals, which makes sense.
Yeah, that covers a lot of different fields as well. So
It felt like we were really on the up there, didn't it?
yeah, we were definitely on the up, and then the pandemic kind of forced other industries to take over. Unfortunately, I don't think that like RV technicians are still, seeing the same amount of work that they were seeing during the
It
pandemic.
was probably a blip, like
Yeah.
definitely related to the pandemic. But this list that I compiled for 2025, I would say feels a lot more consistent. Like these jobs are probably going to stick around for a little bit, hoping there's no other pandemic in our future where things will definitely get thrown back into 2019, 2020 levels. But I think it was an interesting list to compile, especially if you have young family members who are in college or in high school right now and they're not sure what they want to do next. I would definitely push them into a fastest growing field. Considering, the way things are going with AI, I would definitely want to know like where is AI
In the grand scheme of
in
things,
the
yeah.
grand scheme of things. And towards the end, we're also going to go through an Am I the Asshole scenario. Those ones are a lot of fun. It's nice to give our 2 cents there, and we'd love to hear your 2 cents as well. So stick around for the story towards the end, and we'll talk about it then. But going right into the fastest growing jobs of 2025, I organized them based on the industry and also by pay. So it worked out in my favor that the industry kind of worked alongside the highest pay and lowest pay. So, kicking off with the lower paid tier, which consists of green energy jobs. Can you guess what kind of jobs might be part of this rapidly growing set of green energy jobs?
I don't know. Whenever I think of green energy, I mostly think of solar panels, but I know that that's also like hydrogen, right?
I don't
Yeah,
know.
I don't know. But yeah, like I'm thinking like clean
Hmm.
energy type of thing. So solar panels, electric vehicle manufacturers,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Okay, so there's two jobs here that are part of the list that are part of green energy and rapidly growing. The lowest paid one is I know I'm going to say this wrong, solar photovoltaic installer. And I asked our friends over at Google on the internet, what the heck does that mean? So bear with me. I asked ChatGPT to even explain it to me as though I was a 5-year-old. So here we go. Solar photovoltaic installers Put solar panels on rooftops or fields so the sun's energy can be turned into electricity for houses, schools, and businesses. So basically, they install solar
Yeah,
panels.
solar panel installs. And that makes a lot of sense too. And it makes sense as well as to why that's on the lower tier.
Hmm.
Because solar panels, they're very widespread. There's also so many different companies that make solar panels, like so
Hmm.
many different tiers of solar panels. Um, you got the guys that walk door to door asking you, hey, do you want to
I
do
know.
solar
Can they leave
panels?
us
Right.
alone?
So like it makes sense as to why they're on the lower tier. But then with the political landscape, it also makes sense as to why they're on the lower end
Hmm.
with now the push to no longer use clean energy.
Right. They do have a growth rate of 48%, which is really solid. I mean, the traditional growth rate for careers is usually between like I want to say 2 to 6%. So, a 48% is amazing. That means, it's almost doubling year after year, but can you guess what the median pay is considering that it is the lowest tier on this list?
Annually,
Mhm.
I would say probably about 50 to 60,000.
Yeah, literally so on point there. $51,860 a year, according to the BLS. And granted, I know there's going to be somebody in the comments saying, I have a cousin who makes $250,000 as a. I hear you. I'm not saying you're wrong. You can't tell me I'm wrong either.
Right.
This is aggregated data from the BLS, so these are valid sources. But granted, like everybody's going to have a different experience, especially when if we're just looking at solar panel installers as a whole. I'm sure there's a lot of nuance between which areas of the country have highest sales potential. If you work for yourself or if you work for a larger company, you might be able to make more versus less. So there's always nuance, and I want to make sure that we include that nuance in this list. All right, so number two on the list is also within green energy. This one is a wind turbine service technician. And basically, they climb really tall towers with big spinning blades and fix the machines that make electricity from the wind. They check for problems and do repairs to keep them working. And this job actually has a significant growth rate. It's got a plus 60% projected change between 2023 to 2033. So in the next 10 years, this job is definitely going to blow up. And the median pay is a little higher than the one prior. They're averaging about $62,000 a year, according to the BLS, the Muse, the Ladders, and a bunch of different sources. But like you said, this really matters because there is this renewable energy boom, but it is interesting to see how will politics potentially impact that.
Well, I mean, like we already know that this current cabinet does not care for renewable energy and is looking to move back towards, coal power.
Right.
And with that, that'll take a big hit for the renewable energy sector. I know that with the wind turbines, one of the biggest issues that we were facing with it is what happens after that turbine goes out of commission, because we're not able to just recycle this, 100-foot high
Right,
blade,
they're really tall,
Yeah,
yeah.
right. They're massive, so I think for a while they were actually just burying the portions of it because there was nothing that we could really do with it. But I know that I've also seen a video that there's this company that's like pretty much like recycling it and using it for other things. So
Okay.
yeah, we're finding out solutions to every problem, which is the important part.
Not fast enough for me.
Not fast enough.
All right, so the next one is healthcare roles. They're a little bit higher tier, not that much, but I will start with the lower tier. The lowest paid on the list here is a physical therapist assistant. And we made a video on Monday of the fastest growing careers. And in that list, I included physical therapist assistants and physical therapists. So there's a difference between an assistant and a therapist. People were very kind to point that out to me.
Right.
And I just want to add the nuance here that physical therapist assistants are on that list of the fastest growing, but I included physical therapists as well because they work hand in hand. I understand they're completely different educational backgrounds and requirements, but people that become physical therapist assistants, I'm assuming will want to become a physical therapist. It's like a ladder, you're
Yeah,
climbing the
that's what I
ladder
would
and going
assume.
up. Right. So you couldn't have an increase in physical therapist assistance without also having an increase in physical therapy or like a demand for it. All that to say, I grouped them together, but in this median pay call out specifically, this only applies to assistants, not physical therapists who traditionally would make a lot more. But the median pay for a physical therapist assistant is $65,510 a year, once again, according to a variety of different sources. But Their growth rate is about 25% year over year.
Yeah, and I believe that. I can definitely tell because I mean, right now I go to physical therapy.
Mm-hmm.
I have 2 sessions left. So
Oh, yay, you're
with
almost
that,
done.
on my last session, I'm going to go around and ask all of them how much do they make.
You should. Oh my God, you should
Yeah.
though. Do you think they'd be down?
I don't think that they would be down to answer it.
You're just gonna
Because
try.
I've had several of them ask me what do I do for work, and I kind of give the small gist that we do when we're not
Yeah.
really trying to tell people exactly who we are,
Hmm.
and they were all like, "Oh, that's pretty cool," but then like brushed past it. So I was like, "Oh, thank
Yeah,
you."
I know. We need to have an episode about like what our day-to-day looks like and like these interactions that we have
Yeah.
because it's I don't know, you think you would know what it's like to be quote unquote famous and then you live through it and you're like, "Oh my gosh, I have all these new experiences and
Yeah.
new ways to talk
Well,
and new
cause
ways to
yeah, cause I
communicate."
think that, like, even as far as, like, our friends go, I think that when they think that we introduce ourselves to people, we go, "Oh, yeah, I'm James from Salary
Yeah.
Transparency, like,
And
look
I'm
me
like,
up."
"No,
But it's like,
I'm on the
I
internet."
feel like throughout this time, we figured out new ways to explain what we do without giving it away,
Yeah.
Like, I've heard a lot of, "Oh, yeah, I think I've seen something like that," and I'll be like, "Yeah, you probably have."
Yeah.
You know?
And leave it at
Yeah,
that.
leave it at that.
All right, so continuing on with our list, we've got some more healthcare roles to go through here. So these are organized from lowest to highest pay, still within the healthcare role. So the next one on the list is a medical and health service manager. So it's within healthcare, but not in the way that you would assume. You don't need to go get a medical degree. This is on the business side of things. The growth rate for these roles is about 29%. And the median pay is quite a leapfrog from the jobs we were just talking about. The median pay is about $118,000 a year.
Wow, that's a lot
Yep.
more than I was expecting. I was thinking like 80, 90. That's
Yeah.
yeah,
It
118.
pays to bridge the gap between patient care and administration and to
Yeah.
manage everything in between.
Yeah, that makes sense. They put a lot of money in that area.
Yeah, but I don't know. This is a good conversation, I guess, to have. I wish that they would put a lot more of that money towards the healthcare professionals. And I guess they
Same.
are also healthcare professionals, but the ones that are caring for
Yeah,
patients.
patient care. Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, but I would disagree strongly with an organization that pays an office job way more money than the nurse who's performing actual bedside healthcare.
Yeah, then the ones that's actually, boots on the ground, hands and wounds.
Literally. Yeah, but such is the way that things work, and so if you're chasing the pay, that's good to know. The next one is nurse practitioners. They have a growth rate of 46%, and their median pay is between $126,000 to $129,000 a year. This is according to US News, the best job in America.
Mm.
Yeah. And it's really popular right now because there's an aging population, healthcare is expanding, and people are looking for, not a traditional doctor to go to, although they are doctors, but nurse practitioners can do almost exactly the same things as doctors
Yeah.
can. And so I know from my perspective as a woman, sometimes I will look for a female nurse practitioner near me because they do have, in some cases, more training for women's health. And I know that I can go see them for everything that I need, but have, you know, more direct care that would, their experience would really help me. We've also interviewed some nurse practitioners before. I really want to interview Monica again. Do you remember we interviewed Monica, the NP, in Washington, D.C., I believe in 2023? So it's been 2 years since her interview. And to this day, she's the highest paid nurse practitioner we've interviewed. She was making over $200,000 a year.
Which is nice, man. I wish.
Yeah, she was rolling in the dough. So we need to get a new interview and see where she's at this year because I'm sure it's a lot higher. The other one is a physician assistant. The growth rate for this one is about 28%, and the median pay is $133,000 a year. And I do want to do a little bit of gloating here that we interviewed a physician assistant at Broccoli City Festival last year, one of the summer festivals in Washington, D.C. And this interview went particularly viral because the physician assistant was wearing festival clothes. And I'm not going to go further into
Yeah,
it
you
than
don't have to
that.
elaborate on what that
But she
means.
was
Like,
wearing, revealing clothes, and it was nothing that was inappropriate for the setting that she was in. She actually had more clothes on than a lot of people, but certain cutouts, made it a little bit more risque. And for some reason, that sent our viewers on Facebook especially into a tizzy. And I don't mean that in a laughing matter. It was actually really depressing to see this woman be torn apart and doubted for how much she said she made, and people saying the most horrible vile things about her and her worth and whether or not she should be doing this job because she wore a standard uniform to a festival
on her time
on her
off,
time off.
which is crazy.
Yeah.
People expect that's literally like looking at a cop at the beach and going,
Why are you
"Yeah,
naked?
why are you not wearing clothes? I don't
Yeah.
see your badge,
Yeah,
so
where's
you
your
don't
badge?
deserve to be a cop." You
It's
know?
inappropriate for you to have your
Yeah.
shirt off at the
I,
beach.
I shouldn't see your toes. As a cop, I shouldn't see your toes.
Yeah, that's a really good example. And so I just want to point out here that if that interview made you upset, she did make what she said she was making. The statistics prove it. The data shows that that is on track. And not only that, she's in one of the fastest growing careers in the country. So she'll probably be employed for several years past her haters.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right, but moving into the next tier, we've got tech roles. No surprise there. The fastest growing roles as a whole are green energy, healthcare, and tech. So, going right into the tech here, starting off with data scientists, they have a growth rate of 36% and a median pay of $112,000 a year. That sounds about right.
Yeah, that sounds about right, like right on par, actually. Did they take that number from
Me?
our experiences? Like,
Right? They like watched our
right,
videos.
they was like, we'll just use her data.
Honestly, I would be honored. Like that would be so cool. All right, so the next up after data scientists is information security analyst. This one didn't surprise me at all. Cybersecurity and information security are definitely hot topics right now.
Yeah, I mean, then they're going to continue to boom with the, creation of new apps, new websites, all of
Yeah.
that. Like, you need cybersecurity, obviously,
Yeah.
and that industry is not going anywhere anytime soon, especially with the boom of AI.
Yeah, I just saw the other day that some major organization, actually multiple, there was a huge data breach recently. And so it just goes to show that as long as data breaches continue to occur, information security professionals will still have
Well,
jobs.
actually, they're going to continue to occur because I just seen a video the other day pointing out that several airports may actually be at risk for a cyber attack
That doesn't surprise me one bit.
because there's some hacker group that like is purposefully targeting them.
Yeah.
So during this 4th of July weekend or week, they're expecting that a lot of people may be delayed or may be at risk for having information stolen from
Yeah.
them because of this.
That doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, there's so much information out there. We all live online, but it is terrifying to
Yeah,
think about what could happen in light of a real massive breach. I just had to change my passwords yesterday because
actually, yeah.
this is a really good time to talk about this topic. Yeah, I actually had some people I work with sent me a message and said that I might be the victim of some malware or phishing attack. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And they said that they had received an email from me, but it wasn't from me. It was from an email that looked exactly like mine. But that's not true, actually. The email didn't match mine at all, but they had used my profile picture from social media and for
Yeah.
some reason had put that on the email, and it came through looking like spam, looking like a phishing attack. It was literally like, these are the trades that I want you to join me in, picking my trades or something. So I'm really hoping that whoever got that email from quote unquote me did not open it because it clearly looked like spam. But what's scary about it is they didn't even get into my account. They just impersonated me.
Yeah,
And
spoofing.
sometimes it's called spoofing, email spoofing. So the email was actually Hannah CEO stocks and squats at gmail.com. It wasn't even like a at Salary Transparent Street. They didn't get into my account, but they made it look like I had sent those emails. And I had such an anxiety rush from it because I felt like it was my responsibility. But in cases like that, there is not really anything you can do. Anybody can create a fake account that looks just like yours and reach out to the people that you know and try to get people who are just not cyber literate.
Well, so that's actually what I was getting ready to touch on. It's just that, like my time in the Marine Corps, when I got my TS clearance and everything, they kind of walked us through, or we actually had to take several classes about like cybersecurity and stuff.
Yeah, as you
So
should.
like I can become educated as to what to look for a phishing attempt or a spoofing attempt and
Mhm.
stuff like that. And with the expansion of the internet and the access that everyone has to it, we as regular people, not including me, because obviously I got the class, but like other individuals aren't getting this information.
Right.
They don't know what a phishing email looks like. They
Yeah.
don't know what to do if somebody spoofs your email. They don't even know what to do if their emails are compromised and stuff.
Mhm, mhm.
So like it's definitely a huge issue, and it's only going to get worse as the internet becomes more accessible and people continue to age, because the way that they're doing it at these airports is that they're acting as gate agent or acting as airline agents, so
They're
make it.
doing it, like, physically?
No, not physically. So like
Oh.
they'll pose as like an airline official and call you and say, "Hey, we need your information for this,
Oh,
or we need your information
wow.
so that we can do this." And a lot of our
That's
population is
effed.
aging. Yeah,
Mhm.
so like they'll fall for these things easy.
Yeah.
But it's a lot easier for us as a young generation to be like, "Yeah, I just won't answer the phone and I won't fall for that, phone call." That's easy to say.
It's getting better and better now.
Yeah, but now it's getting even better to where now it's your email, and we all rely on email.
Yeah.
So what are you gonna do when you get an email from your boss that says click this link and you click it and now you just installed malware because that was
Right,
a
but don't click the link,
yeah.
and I feel like this is a really good time to just mention some very brief internet safety. Do not open emails from emails that you do not recognize, and especially do not click on any links. Never click on links. Never, ever, ever. Don't open attachments. Don't click on links if you have not verified the email. And if you still have doubts about the email, reach out to the person that you know and ask them, hey, did you send me this email? Because the risk of not confirming that, who knows? And change your password.
Yeah, and a great way to like also help avoid some of these things is to turn off like your email preview. So I know like a lot of people when you go into your inbox, you click on inbox and then you can immediately see the messages and links, because you're previewing your inbox
Mhm.
as you go through it. But that's a great way for viruses to automatically be installed because you're allowing them to download these images and the text and stuff before you even access
Ah,
the email.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, so
Okay,
I turn off my email previews. You
good to
don't need
know.
them. Also, don't allow your stuff to just start downloading stuff without you actually
Mhm.
checking to see what it is.
And make sure you change your password if you haven't within the last 2 to 3 months.
You should be changing your password frequently.
Very frequently. Okay, back to the episode. So, the next one on the list is computer and information research scientists. They have a 26% growth rate and a median pay of $141,000 a year. And I asked them to explain this to me like I was a fifth grader again. And so they told me they come up with new ideas to make computers smarter and faster. They invent new technology or find better ways to solve tricky computer problems.
Mm.
So, knowing computers definitely is going to continue to pay even in the face of AI, somebody needs to be managing and monitoring and growing these computers.
Yeah, no, and that definitely makes a lot of sense as well. That's the thing. A lot of these jobs that are growing, I'm noticing the trend that it makes sense as to why they're growing.
Yeah, totally. And so this brings me to the next tier where this is just grouped all together. Doesn't matter whether it's healthcare tech or green energy.
Yeah,
These are just high paying and very high growth rate careers. All
they're
right.
not like industry specific or anything.
They're just specific to the job. So this next tier is top tier elite high paying physicians. And by physicians, this includes psychiatrists, surgeons, ophthalmo- ophthalmologists,
Ophthalmologist.
ophthalmologists, and radiologists. And their median pay is well over $200,000 a year, oftentimes clearing over $240,000 a
Yeah.
year.
Is it anesthesiologist? Aren't they included
This
there?
one's not included. Funny enough, anesthesiologists
Mm.
are not included in that, but I would guess, I mean, we already know that
Yeah,
they're
we already know
really
that they
high
pay
pay.
really
They
well.
just might not qualify as fastest growing.
Yeah, and that would make a lot of sense. But yeah, I mean, high paying jobs, that's definitely a spot as to where I would look to assume that everybody's being paid pretty well. Physicians, yeah,
Yeah, but it is important to note here that the education required
yep,
is a lot, and you're not going to be making that money off the bat. We've interviewed physicians before, specifically resident physicians, and residents, oh my gosh, it every time I've interviewed them, my jaws just dropped at how low pay they make. They make about $70,000 a year. I would say that's a good average. A lot of the residents we've interviewed make exactly 70 or 70 to 80. And it's just insane that they're like years, 5+ years into their education, knee high, waist high in debt, and they're making that much.
yeah,
It's really expensive to do. So the pay ends up
yeah.
being worth
It
it, but
matches.
you do have to make those sacrifices
Yeah.
to start.
So a lot of school, low pay in the beginning, long hours,
Yeah.
and then eventually you'll make money to be able to pay off some of your student loans.
So the other ones on this list include AI/FinTech engineers and big data specialists. And if we want to know what that means, they essentially build programs that help computers learn and make smart decisions or handle lots of information at once, like building a robot brain or making sure your bank app works safely. So definitely an important role.
Really important.
Yeah, and it's rumored that these jobs are also some of the fastest growing globally in 2025 and continuing on further years. And their potential pay starts at $100,000 a year, with senior roles making over $200,000 a year.
And I mean, in a lot of cases, it only takes 5 to 10 years to hit a senior role. But in my case, like in my role, I was there for 5 years and achieved a senior role.
Yeah,
So
I did it in 3.5, I think.
yeah,
Yeah, so it's definitely possible, and you could be making that 200K faster than you
a
think.
lot faster.
I also think what I like about tech roles compared to traditional like business is sometimes you hear people say, like when I was a senior data analyst, sometimes comments I would get were, "How are you a senior at 23 years old?"
Yeah, you're a
And
baby. How
"You
can
were
you
a
be a
baby, like
senior?
how are you a senior with 3 years of experience?" Yada yada. And I think that's what's interesting about tech versus, the traditional business landscape is that in business, your years of experience translate into your title. You have to put years in to move up the ladder.
Yeah,
But in tech, it's more your talent and also opportunity. Sometimes it's just plain dumb luck.
honestly, and I mean, and that's the same with when it comes to these government positions
Yeah.
as well. Because I mean, I wasn't necessarily in tech. I mean, but I would kind of say that it's tech. I
Mhm.
mean, information operations.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
kind of.
tech.
Yeah, but like you said, it's all about position and timing. So I just happened to be in the right spot with the right amount of experience, with the right amount of adaptability to be able to take over the role,
Mhm.
and I was a senior.
Yeah. And the next ones are cybersecurity experts and tech managers. So these guys are called CISOs, CISOs. I don't know.
Scissors.
I thought you would know more than me. Okay, so CISOs and IT managers can earn between $160,000 to $200,000 a year and over that. And also, they are some of the fastest growing jobs of 2025.
That's wild. Let me look up one of those roles.
We've interviewed some people in
I've
cybersecurity.
never heard of a Cisco. No, I'm
Yeah,
joking.
a CISO, and I wonder why it's called a CISO. Let me Google this. So this actually makes sense because a CISO is a Chief Information Security Officer, and a tech manager is clearly a manager higher up on the food chain. So it kind of makes sense that these are some of the fastest growing jobs because these jobs didn't exist like
Yeah,
10
yeah,
years
they didn't
ago.
really exist.
There wasn't a chief information security officer when there wasn't the internet.
Yeah,
So these are definitely jobs that have grown in the last 2 or 3 decades and are now going to be some of the, I would say, a CISO could be one of the most sought after jobs out there in tech in the future.
yeah, agreed.
Yeah. Can you imagine the pay? Imagine being the CISO of like Apple.
But imagine your roles and responsibilities at
Oh,
that
yeah.
level.
You will not sleep.
Yeah, on call 24/7.
You have to be. And we've had this conversation before, and I think it makes sense to have it here. I'd love to hear your 2 cents. If you're listening, please leave us a comment, let us know what you think. But I think that if you are at a C-suite level, you're, in a manager type role, and you are making in those roles several hundreds of thousands of dollars typically, if not millions in your total compensation package. A great example would be the CEO of Amazon, like that level. This might be a hot take, but I don't think that they should ever have a moment of peace. And that does sound kind of harsh, but I think when you're making that much money, you should be on call 24/7. Like, sure, you can go take a vacation, but if something hits the fan and you're in Hawaii, you better get your butt back on that private plane and back to headquarters. If you're making that much money, I feel like that's what the sacrifice should be.
Yeah, and I definitely agree because it's easily feasible. As a briefing team planner for DHS, making $70,000 a year, I was on call 24/7.
Right, and that's what I mean,
Yeah,
is you have workers that are at lower tier levels who aren't allowed to take vacation,
yeah.
who are on
It
call
was literally they
24/7.
gave me a second phone
Mhm.
so that I can always be available for a call if need be. So you being a CEO making billions of dollars,
Not billions, millions.
millions of dollars, like in
There should be
bonuses. And
sacrifices
and
that come
that's
with
in
that.
bonuses though. That's the thing.
Right,
Like they'll make 2 to 300,000 in salary and then 2.6 million in bonus.
right.
You should be on call 24/7.
24/7
If I need my password reset, I should be able to call you and be like,
at
"Hey,
2 a.m.
I need my password reset."
And that might be a hot take, that might just be us, but that's what I think.
Yeah,
If I have to do it, if I have to take a call at 10 p.m., you should have to take a call at 2 a.m.
exactly.
and not complain about it.
But let us hear your 2 cents on that.
All right, so that was fun. I thought that was cool. Really interesting jobs that are going to be coming out and about. But
Yeah.
this leads me to our story that we're going to go through, which is an Am I the Asshole type situation. And I can curse now because we don't have a sponsor for this episode. But it kind of plays on what we were just talking about with high pay. And now we're going to bring it into a dynamic of a relationship. How do these high paying jobs play out in our daily lives and what issues can they bring up? Am I the asshole for saying my husband can't quit his job? About a month ago, my husband told me he hates his job and wants to quit the profession completely. I told him it wasn't a great time because we were expecting a baby, and I asked him to stick it out until the baby was born so he could get paid parental leave. I told him I didn't think it was fair for him to quit his job while I continued to work and carry the baby. And this is some necessary background on us. We both have what is considered elite, high paying jobs that are very demanding. We are expecting our first child in a few months. Fast forward, and we've had this discussion multiple times. Each time I've told him I don't want him to quit. Each time he tells me the job sucks and gives him anxiety. He hates it, dreads work every day, seems to have panic attacks. When we talked about it, initially I just said, no, don't quit. Later, I've changed to, okay, you can quit, but what's your plan? What will you do once you quit? He says he doesn't have a plan and doesn't want to think of one before quitting because he's so stressed and hates his job so much. He just needs to quit immediately. I've told him I'm not okay with him not working, but if it's just temporary, it's okay. I want him to at least work a job, any job in the future. Admittedly, my income alone could support us, but I don't want to support someone who just doesn't want to work. So I've said it's okay for him to quit and be unemployed for a while, but I'm just uncomfortable with the lack of plan or any idea of what comes next. He said he wants to quit and never work again, and I said I'm not okay with that. I've told him it's his life and it's up to him what he does to make himself happy. If that's quitting, then that's fine, but I'm not okay with him never working again. He thinks I only want him around for his earning potential. He and I each make six figures. While yes, that's partially true, I want him to be earning money, but it's not like I ask him for the money he earns. We have separate bank accounts and earn similar salaries. I'm not in need of the money he makes, I just don't want him to do nothing. So he's angry that I only want him for the money he can earn because I've told him that I wouldn't stay with him if he quits and never works again. I'm not happy that he wants to quit his job and never work again. FYI, we are early 30s. Am I the asshole?
So my opinion first, I don't think that she's an a-hole. And like with the clarification of the rest of the story, it makes sense. Because at first I thought it was just that he didn't want to work and she was just like, no, like, no, you're definitely gonna work. But the fact that she was like, well, like, yeah, you can quit. And I completely understand that. But like, what's your plan? At that point, I was like, all right, this is when now it's just him being lazy,
Yeah.
because like I can get when a job it's not good for your mental health. I had one. I had two.
Mhm.
Like I definitely get that. But like with that, you definitely do need a plan, at least something, whether it's, yeah, I'm going to take a 2-week break and then get into the workforce, or he could even go, yeah, I'm going to quit for now, and then when the baby hits a month, we can put it in daycare and I'll start looking for a job. I think that that's what it is. It's just she's looking for some type of plan, and
Yeah.
he's just like, I don't want to work, which
Yeah.
I get. Like, because I know that playing devil's advocate, people would be like, well, women do that all the time. But
Mhm.
it's like we as a society put that on women,
And
like
let's be clear, that they're not working. Taking
exactly
care of the home is a
is a
job.
job.
And she
Exactly.
actually added a little edit here that he has not suggested that he would be a full-time homemaker, but I did ask and he said he would be willing to do it. I'm hesitant about this setup because he thinks I have crazy high cleanliness standards and he has already stated he would not clean to my standard. Currently, his standard is to leave dishes in the sink for weeks and generally does not clean anything unless I ask, and even then, it will take days to weeks before he gets around to it.
Mm.
So, all that to say, yes, when women do it, they're like, well, women do it. Nuh-uh, that is unpaid labor, and it should be one of the highest paid
And
jobs in the
and
in the
with that
world.
and with that, the standard is still set that when I, the man, get home, the woman has to make sure that the house is clean, the kids are
Food is
fed,
on the table.
laundry's done,
Yep,
food's on the table ready for me. So
that's a
like
job.
you as a man, if you go, well, I don't want to work anymore, you have to be willing to put in that same amount of effort.
Because who's gonna do it?
Exactly.
Who's going to do it? And if you're going to pay somebody to do it, then you're validating that that's a job and you could be doing it too.
Exactly. And I mean, I think this kind of brings us back to that breadwinner conversation
Yeah.
that we had before,
Mhm.
because it kind of feels the same. Like at this point, I feel as though they really do just need to have a conversation and figure out what's going on with him mentally, to the point to where he feels as though this is the route that he wants to take.
Right.
Like I said before, I understand like that your mental health is very important and that a job can do a lot to that.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean, well, now I just need to go into a hole somewhere, especially while I have a wife and a child on the way.
Yeah.
Like that's not the answer.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I think what really sticks out to me is it sounds like he's struggling with his mental health. And we've both been there where
Yeah,
you just have a job that you hate so bad that you would quit that day and you don't want to do anything. You don't have a plan. You don't have the capacity to think about that. So in that sense, I empathize with him and I understand where he's coming from. But you are in a partnership and you can woe is me for as long as you can, but eventually you have to pick yourself up and you
yeah,
have to come up with a plan. And if you are in a marriage, you're expecting your baby and you both have full-time jobs making multi six figures and you decide to leave it all behind, you can't be upset at your partner for not being okay with that plan because that's not
exactly.
how things were going. So I empathize with her frustration. I empathize with his situation. And I think they need to meet in the middle. He needs to pick his butt up. And I say take a month or two off, stay home with the baby, realize how hard that job is. And once you realize
Actually,
it and you're ready to hire help, go get your ass back on LinkedIn and start applying and doing that networking because yeah, this doesn't seem like it also seems to me that his partner, his wife who wrote this, it's attractive to have somebody who has plans for themselves, who has
yeah,
goals for themselves, who wants to make something out of their life and to do it with you. And when you say you have no plan and you don't want to work, that's very unattractive. And
yeah.
I could see that this could lead to a
Well, I
really
wouldn't even say
negative,
like just unattractive. It's just off-putting,
off
like
putting,
a person who doesn't have goals or aspirations doesn't sound like a person you want to spend time
or
around,
grow with. You
Yeah, or
can't.
grow with,
You can't.
And that's the thing too, is like I feel as though she gave him a very good option in the beginning, saying wait until your paternity leave and then we'll have this discussion after
Yeah.
that, because that paternity leave
Yeah.
would give him the option,
Say, take a
to
step
yeah,
back.
take a step back, get a breather from work, spend time with the family, see what it's like being a stay-at-home father for a little bit,
Yeah.
and then
See what you
if
want to do
that's exactly
next.
what he wants to do, then once he goes back into work, go, hey, I quit.
Yeah. I quit.
You
Yeah.
plus you just got a free vacation
Mm-hmm.
right before you quit. Like,
Right.
why would you risk that?
Swear, yeah. There are good options presented And if he doesn't take any of those options, then she is not the asshole. And I would argue that he is. But I really do want to stress that this seems like a mental health issue, a
Yeah, big
burnout
mental
issue, a
health.
big burnout issue. And I don't want him to feel like he's getting like dog piled on. But I would recommend a little bit of therapy, a little bit of time off, and just touch some grass, go take a vacation, go to the beach, go do things that you love.
Smoke a doobie.
Smoke a doobie. If you're, you just have to reconnect to the things that feel simple, that you're like, wow, this is the life. But the good news is, we just went through some of the fastest growing, highest paying jobs. So if he wants some options, just listen to this episode back.
Yeah, go cybersecurity, bro.
Yeah, just CISO. You can
Yeah,
do it.
do Cisco.
Cisco. But that is all we have planned for you this week. We really hope you enjoyed this week's episode. We're going to figure out our studio in a better setup hopefully soon.
Yeah.
On a personal note, we are about to start renovations on our home, so we might have to do some audio only episodes in the future. Just laying the
So I
groundwork
mean,
out.
like, if you guys don't see the video feed, then just know that we're in the process of getting all of this redone.
Yeah, but
And
if
we'll
you
definitely be giving you guys a breakdown of what that looks like as far as cost and time frame, and what it looks like for real.
all of that to say that if you aren't following us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or anywhere you get your podcasts, be sure to go save us over there so you can listen to our next episodes, just in case we do not have a video episode and we're not on YouTube traditionally next week. But thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.